today. I'm excited to welcome Griff Peterson. He comes to us as the learning lead from Peer-to-Peer University, P2PU, and Kate Lipinski, who is the Learning and Economic Advancement Librarian at the Chicago Public Library. And they're here to talk about their great work creating and facilitating learning circles in their library, and they've brought an excellent model for all of you to use and replicate in your communities. Welcome, Griff and Kate.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I will just quickly introduce myself, and then Kate can do the same, and we'll get started. My name is Griff Peterson, with no relation to our host, Jennifer. And I've been with Peer-to-Peer University based in Boston, Massachusetts for about a year and a half now. And in December 2014, we were the recipient of a Knight Foundation News Challenge award to develop a way for Chicago Public Library to start facilitating and running online courses. You may know them as MOOCs, Massive Open Online Courses, and other open educational resources in their library branches. And after working together for a year, we released an open source toolkit in February 2016 that we are now starting to work with a number of different libraries around the country and around the world. And my hope today, as I speak with you and listen to some of your questions, are just finding ways that we can get more and more libraries involved, and finding ways to facilitate online courses as part of the library programming. Kate, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I am Kate Lipinski, and I am from the Chicago Public Library's Adult Learning and Economic Advancement Department. So we basically support adult learning and economic advancement throughout the entire system in partnership with our neighborhood branches and other community organizations. So we oversee initiatives relating to adult education, digital skills, workforce development, and job search training, career development. So since we concentrate on digital literacy, as Griff said, we have been working with our fantastic partners at Peer-to-Peer University to pilot the program, which went on throughout 2015. And we've now rolled it out, and we're working with some more librarians, and we're running the sessions now too in 2016.
So the way we'll go forward today, I'm going to just give a brief intro to the program, and then Kate is going to walk through the process of how it went in Chicago, go over some of the the results that we've shared with librarians and patrons, and then I'll come back at the end, towards the end, and talk more just about the concrete steps that you can take and the different ways that you can get this started in your library should you choose. And then we really would like to reserve a lot of the time just for some questions and some conversation, though I recognize it's a bit one-sided, just to be able to help suss out some of the questions that you're having or some of the goals that everyone who's part of this webinar right now would like to learn a bit more about. And so with that, Jennifer, do you want to introduce the annotation tool? We're going to ask about 2 or 3 questions up front just to get a better sense of where everyone's coming from.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And yes, I think it's only appropriate for a webinar talking about online learning to implement some interactivity here in today's online session. So if you've not yet used our annotation tools here in our WebJunction webinar, take a moment to go to the top left corner of your view and click on the marker you see up there. That will open the annotation panel. Go halfway down the panel option and click on the box, and then go down to the check mark in the submenu. And once you have your check mark handy, you can test on the screen. Feel free to share your check marks just as a test here on this screen. Excellent. Glad to see folks are finding them. All right. And then we'll have you pause after your practice, and Griff will let you introduce their first option for checking.
I love all of these check marks. So you can get your checks ready, the first question we're going to ask here is just the experience that you have with online learning at your library. And so this is sort of a spectrum. If this is really the first time you've heard of online learning, you can throw your check somewhere down on the left-hand side above the bar. If you're somewhere in the middle where you know that people are coming to your library and using online learning, but you're not doing much more beyond that, throw your check somewhere in the middle. And if you already have some programming at your library, like learning circles, where people are coming on a weekly basis to work through a course, you can go and put your check towards the right-hand side. And this is looking a lot like what I think Kate and I have been talking about for the last year. We know that people are coming to libraries to go through MOOCs, to go through online courses. We know that many libraries have accounts with Gail and Linda, but that we aren't seeing a whole lot of people who are starting to facilitate programming around online courses in the way that they are around book groups and things like that. And I think one thing that CPL and P2PU, wow, somebody's very enthusiastic. One thing that CPL and P2PU have learned in this last year is that we treat online courses really as just a new form of knowledge and a new way that information is being stored. And so while there's certainly a bit of a buzz around online courses and MOOCs, we really think of this as like an ongoing program that is something that's it's just really trying to help librarians work with patrons to gain knowledge and insight from a new form of communication. And for the folks who have put their stars or their check marks towards the right, if you want to send a message in the chat, either with a web link or a short description of the work that you're doing, I would love to learn a bit more about that, and I think the community here would benefit from that. So if you have any blog posts or anything about the work that you've done, please feel free to throw that in the chat. We'll do one more question for now, and that is, what programs would you like to see more of in your library? And you can, I'm not sure if people are able to do one check mark. I think if you can figure out a way to do multiple checks, go ahead and do that. But these are a few of the topics that we've been working at with Chicago Public Library using online courses that we found from Coursera, edX, Khan Academy, and you can see that they're ranging from English language learning to resume writing, exam prep, some business courses in personal finance and digital marketing. Digital literacy spans a gamut from people who are really just orienting themselves to computers to up to and through HTML and CSS. We even ran a Python course. And then there's this sort of lifestyle type course, which is a bit of a catch-all for the parenting, nutrition, happiness courses. And there are tons of others out there, but we just wanted to get a sense of, as you're out there looking for programming, whether it's with adults or with teens, wanting to get a sense of where people were coming with interest. And it seems like it's pretty well spread across with, maybe a bit of a concentration in the job skills and the digital literacy buckets, which I think is fairly similar to what we've seen in Chicago. This is remarkably helpful for us. It's amazing just to be able to speak with 60 librarians at once. And I should mention now, just in case anyone has to leave early, that we will be at the American Libraries Association conference in Orlando, and we'll probably screenshot these slides and include them in the talk. So if you happen to be down there, do come and see us. At this point, I think I'm going to just give quick more background on the project. I think I've said most of this already, but when we won the Knight News Challenge grant last year, it was really to deal with the issue of what low college completion rates we have in the U.S. and how many adult learners are out there who are, maybe are looking to complete college, maybe are looking just to upskill and get a new job. And, many college degrees, whether it's community, for-profit, 4-year degrees, they're high in cost. A lot of the time we're finding a lack of relevance to individuals' lives, and there's not a lot of support, especially for these online programs. And as online learning has become more and more of a thing, I think there's been a lot of buzz around the idea that maybe MOOCs will sort of solve the problem. But I think for folks, especially who don't have a great level of comfort on computers, we're finding that a lot of these programs, even free courses, really don't have the support that's necessary. And so when we started working with Chicago Public Library, we were interested in finding a way that we could use free online courses and combine that with a local community and a peer learning network to try to create a really meaningful and still free learning experience for adult learners. And that's where we developed the concept of learning circles. And in a sentence, we describe these as lightly facilitated study groups for learners who want to take online courses together in a public space. And here you can see our little formula. We take an online course. I think this is the home page for Coursera, and they offer free courses and topics ranging from academic writing to aerospace engineering to web design. And then we've developed a few tools that we're going to talk about today. It's a handbook for facilitators, a workshop that we run for librarians, and some free software tools that combine free text message reminders that go out to patrons. And we generate a free quick web page so you can share a web link with your patrons and get people to sign up that way. And we combine all these tools together, put them in a library, and that's what these learning circles have become. And they really when we tried this with Chicago, we originally said, let's try this for 6 weeks. Let's get people to come for 90 minutes or 2 hours a week, and let's see how it goes. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Kate now, who can talk through a little bit of the experience.
Okay, so in front of you, you have a little map of our beautiful city, and the orange dots are where the learning circles took place in 2015. And just kind of a note on CPL as a system. Our neighborhood branches and locations function pretty much independently, so they plan and execute their own programming. So in a case like this, where we have the Learning Circle initiative and we're really kind of working hard to be training our librarians to act as facilitators and to have our branches host the Learning Circles, we get volunteers to participate in the program. So that's how we kind of have everybody distributed throughout the city. So there's a lot of diversity in our branches. So obviously they're in different neighborhoods, so they have very different community needs, a lot of them. But there are also very different branch resources and staffing issues that we work with internally to make sure that everyone can host a successful learning circle and try to arrange everything that we can so that it goes well. So last year in 2015, we had 11 different branches participate. They did 18 different learning circles. There were 8 different courses offered, and everyone stuck to the meeting for 90 minutes a week for 6 to 8 weeks. We're also, we're in the midst of our spring session right now in 2016. So we had a staggered start. Most of the branches who are hosting learning circles this session started in the first or second week of April. But we actually still, depending on, like I said, like all the different branches have different things going on. So we actually still have branches that started just this week and are actually starting next week as well. So this session, we have 15 different learning circles in 14 different locations. And we're covering about 8 courses. So there are 3 career courses that we're doing. There are a couple of branches hosting fiction writing. A couple are doing a finance course. There are 2 that are doing public speaking, 2 that are doing a pre-college English for speakers of other languages. We have an academic English writing. We have 2 branches hosting a Making a Website learning circle. And then our last one is a Try College 101 learning circle. So that's what we have running currently. And basically, when it comes to course offerings and which online class the branches are going to have, We narrow down the list of available courses kind of administratively, and then we give it to the librarians who are going to act as facilitators for the next session, and they choose from the list of what they'll need and what they think their neighborhood needs. So we don't assign learning circles to specific locations. We obviously know that the librarians know the neighborhood and the community that they're working in best. So they get to choose what they're going to offer and what they're going to be facilitating. Before the session starts, usually about 2 months before the session starts, we gather the librarians together at our central library at Harold Washington downtown, and we go through a day, a day of training. We basically go through the Facilitator Toolkit that Griff mentioned, and we just make sure that our librarians are comfortable with the model and knowing what they're going to have to do, kind of knowing what their job duties will be from week to week going through with the Learning Circle. We also make sure that people know how to sign up their learners and how they work with the different course providers, because that's another thing. There's diversity in which online course and from which provider the Learning Circle is running. So it could be Coursera, it could be Sailor, it could be Khan Academy. So we just make sure that everyone is familiar with the ones that they're actually presenting. So most of the learners who participated in 2015 heard about the program and heard about the Learning Circles through our website. A few of them heard about the program from friends, other librarians, or from flyers that were just posted in the library. And one of the reasons that we have decided to run sessions instead of just letting all the branches kind of pick and choose when they want to start is that we're trying to get bigger outreach impact. So if we can schedule and start them all together and someone does see a flyer and they are interested in trying something new and coming to a Learning Circle, if they can't get to their nearest branch, maybe they can get to a branch that's close by, or maybe they like a subject at a different one. So we do try to run them and start them all together. We're also now at the point I'm in the planning stages of kind of our summer and fall session. And we're also reaching out much deeper to our community partners so that we can get some more engagement with them and kind of get a built-in process that leads people to the Learning Circles. And as we continue running them, we hope that patrons will just see them as a regular tool that the library offers so that they know they can sign up for the next session. So last year, we had a really great, inspiring group of learners that came and that were attracted to the Learning Circles. So 40%, the majority of people had never heard of free online courses. Some had heard of them but never taken one, and others had taken an online course before. So we were really happy with these statistics at CPL because it meant that we were reaching the people that we really wanted to, right? They were people who perhaps don't spend all day, every day on a computer, but they know that they have learning needs, and they're willing to kind of learn and go through something and use it as a learning tool. So that's a pretty big leap. I think that a lot of the learners that were coming to the Learning Circles, it was a big step. So not only were they getting used to online courses in general, but they were also getting used to this format. They did kind of both things at once. We also, depending on, courses, and like I said, the neighborhoods are very different, but even within each individual Learning Circle, there was a big diversity with gender, age, ethnicity, and background. In fall of 2015, I did a Learning Circle that was academic writing. for speakers of other languages, and that was a really, really successful, really kind of mixed group of patrons that we got in to participate in that. And just kind of in my time as an adult librarian, I don't really have experience with other programming that got so many different types of people into one room, and especially for that sustained 6 weeks. So that was really great and really inspiring for us to see. So the reason that the learners came to the learning circles, they had very different reasons. 45% were to increase employability, and 25% was for personal interest, and 15% was for professional development. So far, we have aimed, and we're really trying to offer courses that meet the needs of people who want to increase employability, you know, or go back to school. We really don't place too much focus at CPL on the personal development. So we try not to offer courses like the science of happiness or other things. We try to stick to, just like I read through the courses that we're offering, career courses, writing courses, finance courses, and then things like public speaking that could help, you know, in a job search, at school, or just in somebody's life. So we're pretty tightly focused on employability, and we're really happy to see that percentage was such a big one. So we had really good retention throughout the learning circle, and we were really, really happy. So that first statistic there, 45 to 55% retention for over 6 weeks. It's amazing for us and for our adult librarians to get adult patrons to return to the library for 6 weeks in a row and to make that commitment, or for 5 out of the 6 weeks, you know, whatever they come for. So we were really happy that the commitment for the most part really stuck, and that people did keep returning, and that they saw that this was something that would actually help them learn and would get them into that academic mindset, and that it was easy for them in that time period to see that. So, and Griff mentions it, is going to mention it a little bit further on, but we're just happy with the completion rate for the courses. 35% of learners are going to plan to continue on their own. 80% did work outside of the learning circle, so that kind of shows that the learners were motivated and were really into learning whatever the subject was that they were doing. And 90% are interested in doing another learning circle. So at the library, we were very happy with that as well, because this is such a new way to learn, and it's in such a different format. So a lot of our learners and a lot of our patrons are people who are very used to traditional schooling, right? They might probably have never taken an online course, and then they come in and there's this learning circle, but there's no teacher in the room, or if they're taking an HTML class, there's no HTML expert. But they learn how to lean on the format. So they learn that they can count on their peers to help them through and to kind of assist their learning process. And also that there is the librarian in the room who is facilitating and making sure that everything goes smoothly. And even if it comes down to it, you know, making sure that they're connected to other resources that they can get the answers that they need, or if they want to explore other subjects more. So that was a really, really great statistic for us to see that people liked it and that they took to the format that quickly. Now, how it went kind of overall, the learning circle format is really interesting because so much of it depends on the attendees and their personalities and how they gel as a group, right? So for everybody that was coming in, you know, we had great diversity across the system with the way that groups formed, with the way that groups worked. There were different course layouts. There was a different amount of work that people did outside of the circle. There were different sizes of circles too, right? We had some that, or even right now, we have some that are running that have 14 learners in a learning circle. And then we have a couple of other circles that are running this session that only have a few or even just a couple people in them. So there's really kind of great diversity in how things are going to go logistically. But what is so great about the learning circle and the format and the structure that you rely on is that the model is so flexible. So you kind of, facilitators will get the tools that they need, you know, to run a very big learning circle, to run a smaller learning circle. There are things that take them through in the Facilitator Toolkit and in also the recipe cards, which I'll go into in a little bit, but that will kind of guide the facilitator through the 6 or 8 week circle and make sure that all of the points are being hit and that everything is running smoothly. There's also just the logistic things that are helpful, like the email reminders, the text message reminders that go out. So it's fantastic structure to build on, and I think that, you know, CPL has a lot of different librarians and a lot of different branches, but each librarian is able to structure the learning circle in a way that fits their branch and that fits their workday. So it's just been a really great experience for us. The next slide kind of goes through what the learners appreciated about the learning circles, about the goals that they set, how supported they felt by their peers, how learning the valuable was to them. And I really like that last statistic too about the capacity for academic achievement was a really great one. We were really happy with that one. But especially the first two statistics for setting clear goals and achieving goals, that's a part of the package and a part of the Facilitator Toolkit that you get from P2PU. Is there are recipe cards, which are basically outlines and quick exercises and activities that take the facilitators from week 1 all the way to the last week of the learning circle. And they kind of go through and they hit different things that are important for academic mindsets and academic growth. So right now, I'm actually facilitating the Tri-College 101 Learning Circle, and we just had week 2. And the thing that we went over was setting clear goals, making sure that the learners knew what their goal was for the course, kind of saw how their goal would go through would go with the learning outcomes for each course. So that's kind of what you're just working on, and you just spend a couple of minutes working on things like that, and then the format allows all the learners to go into their coursework. So you really do keep things running and go through. So that's a really good thing to know, that the recipe cards and that you get to pay attention to the different things that are going on from week to week. So the learners really like the learning circles, and so far our experience has been fantastic because our librarians really, really love facilitating the learning circles. So they get deeper personal engagement with their patrons, which is people that you know and people from the neighborhood who are spending time in the library and who you're familiar with. You get to spend more time with them and kind of deepen your relationship. It also, like I said, it gets adults in the door for programming. So there are people who are not in the library branch every week or even every month or maybe not ever. It gets them in the door, and it makes them see the library as a place that has these sustained learning opportunities with really modern tools, right? Learning circles are very innovative, and you know, it kind of, if people aren't familiar and aren't regular patrons of CPL, we're glad that we can kind of expose them to that. Also, like I mentioned, it gets people to return for 6 weeks. You know, before I was in the Learning and Economic Advancement Department, I worked in one of our branch libraries, and if you would have told me that I could get any adults to sign up for something that they came back to see me 6 weeks in a row, I really wouldn't have believed you. But with running these learning circles and working with our librarians and working with Griff, I see that it's actually possible that a lot of the people do return and do kind of keep that commitment. It also, librarians really like it because it answers a real community need. So as I said, we don't tell anyone what to do, right? They choose their own course from the list of courses. So they're able to kind of think back and think what people are asking them and think about what people need. So it's flexible based on each neighborhood, and also, you know, it's a 6-week course. So if they're going to participate in another session, they could kind of go through and pick something else. It's also exciting because it's really different than anything else that we do at CPL. So it allows staff to both learn and use new skills, you know, and that's like anything. You know, we do the training, people are maybe a little nervous, they call me a lot, we kind of go through all of the tools, but really soon, as soon as they get into the session, they see that they have the right tools that they need, and they learn the structure of the learning circles. So it gives them just the right amount of flexibility to do the job well, but to not also have to spend, you know, day in, day out working on this new job duty. It's something that they can learn and really take off running with. So the last thing that I just wanted to mention about our librarians is that, you know, some or many of our librarians aren't really tech gurus. Some of them have never taken an online class themselves before. So it's a really great opportunity to, again, make sure that we're teaching our staff new skills, and also to kind of give them the confidence that they are the person that's, you know, in charge of the learning circle, and they're going to make sure that everything runs smoothly and that they can use this really new technology and this innovative format and really succeed with it. So we've had good luck with that so far, with being able to kind of have librarians of pretty different tech backgrounds run the learning circles successfully. So we just have a few pictures of our learners and some of the circles that took place last year. This one is about how the facilitators made the learner feel very comfortable. This quote, all of these quotes, excuse me, are from learners. And I think that this one just speaks into how the learning circles are a very easy entry into classes, and kind of an academic mindset. So it's a commitment. You're saying you're going to come for a certain number of weeks, and it's also an academic course. You're learning something at a fairly high level, but it's also in your neighborhood branch or in your neighborhood library. So it's a place that chances are good you feel very comfortable. There's very little stuffiness or formality in our branches, you know, so I think that people feel like it's a good, easy on-ramp to going back into this stuff. And then there's also just the logistics, like our learners, they're not paying for anything, they're not getting graded, and it's easy to kind of go through. This is just about how much the learners enjoyed meeting with the same groups of people every week and how it helped confidence levels, which especially in a class like public speaking, you know, that can be a really great opportunity to form a tight-knit group. And speaking to the group mindset, this learner said, I like the accessibility of peers, building confidence in a safe environment, no pressure with our peer group, and learning from our peer group. So this is one of the very interesting things that about the learning circles is that each circle really develops as a group over time. So I just know from my experience facilitating that, you know, the first couple of meetings that you have, everyone in the circle kind of looks at you as if you're the teacher, right? They might look to you to answer questions, and you have to be very careful to turn it back onto the peers and the other people in the circle. But as it develops and as you go through, and I would say usually around week 3 or week 4, they're absolutely comfortable learning from each other, asking each other questions, and knowing who to seek assistance, knowing when to offer assistance. So that's one of the things that's really great about it. Because like I said, we've attracted pretty diverse groups within the learning circle, so it's nice to see everyone kind of coming together. And that's another thing that is reflected in the facilitators recipe cards that I talked about. Was, you know, I think it's in week 3 or week 4, the recipe card says, you know, try to do less during your learning circle this week. Let the learners do as much as they can on their own. So it's a good way that it kind of comes together. The best thing about my learning circle was knowing that I was not the only one out there with a dream of writing and being able to share this with my fellow learning circle members. So obviously this is very attractive to us at CPL because it builds community, right? Anytime that you can build personal relationships within your neighborhood, that goes to kind of one of our very core mission statements is to build community and let people get to know each other in their neighborhoods. So this learner said they appreciated our commitment to learning and expanding the tools of the library, and that they felt lucky to have the opportunity to take the class. So the learners feel lucky, and we feel very lucky at CPL to be able to offer these learning circles because they're just, they really, we've seen them really fulfill a need in our communities, and we really hope that we can kind of ramp up our offerings and invest more time and more thought into how we can offer more learning circles that will help us. So our plans moving forward with the learning circles are, like I said, we're going to offer sessions in spring. We're going to offer a smaller summer session. We don't expect to get that much branch participation in the summer because the vast majority of our branches concentrate a lot on our children's summer learning challenge. So it's just kind of, the branch is a really busy place to be, and just with staffing levels and everything, we don't expect that we'll get a lot in summer, but we are going to offer some. We'll offer some at Harold Washington Library, which is our central library, in the summer. But we'll really gear up for fall too. We want to get major participation in the fall and make sure that we have plenty of courses to offer in plenty different neighborhoods and plenty different branches. So we'll offer the training again for librarians who want to facilitate. And just a couple notes about the training is we welcome librarians to the training who are just curious about the model and who just want to know about learning circles, because we hope that we're planting the seeds for the future. So we hope that when maybe a time comes that they don't have such staffing issues, or that they can devote a little bit more time to it, that they can actually do it. And that's worked well. We have people kind of coming to just check it out. And it's also, we feel that it's a great tool to have in a librarian's arsenal. So not every librarian has to offer a learning circle every session. They can take breaks when branch schedules don't allow it. You know, they can do it as much as they want to, but once they know how to facilitate a learning circle, and once they've been taught the tools that they need, it's a very easy lift, right? The more they do it, the more they know what to expect and can kind of work their way very well through the circle. So we do hope to get to the point where our experienced and skilled facilitators can totally choose their own courses. You know, we ran the program in 2015. We're running it now, and so we have a number of facilitators that ran a couple sessions last year, ran one session last year. So soon we'd like to be able to just kind of give them the ball and give them all of that flexibility and independence. But for right now, since we're just kind of starting this and making sure it's ingrained into our adult offerings, we do narrow down that list. So that has been our experience with learning circles at CPL. It's gone really, really well. Our patrons have been happy with it. Our librarians have been really happy with it. In fact, I was just on the phone yesterday with the librarian who is running one of the fiction writing circles this session in the spring. And she told me, and I promise you this is with no prompting from me at all, she told me that it was quickly becoming her favorite part of her work week because she just got so much out of being able to help her patrons learn in such a different way than she usually does. So with that, I'm going to toss it, I think, back to Griff here.
Great. Thanks so much for that, Kate. I think it means a lot more when you say that than when I do. I tried my best to answer comments and questions as they were coming in the chat. I'm going to speak just for about probably 5 more minutes on just what sort of steps everyone on this webinar can take if this is something that they're interested in. I encourage you to keep the questions coming in, and then we'll try to save a little more than 10 minutes for just for questions towards the end. So going on from this, just summarizing what Kate has said and what we at P2PU are really excited about is that we're seeing retention rates 5 or 10 times higher than online courses on their own. In addition to learning about the course materials, we're also seeing an increase in digital skills and academic mindsets. Through the recipe cards that Kate mentioned, as well as just the fact that on a weekly basis people are going online and with a community of people who can help them when they get stuck. We're fostering digital inclusion and expanded access to a wide group of people who aren't otherwise taking online courses, supporting multiple learner pathways and different reasons for coming into the course. And we're really invigorating the library as a local community space for online learning. And so those are the things that we're taking with us as we now start to work into library branches and look for grant funding to really turn this from sort of a prototype or a version 1.0 into a much more robust program. So as we've mentioned a few times, there's this open source toolkit that is now available, and this is really the combination of this website, learningcircles.p2pu.org, where anybody can go, sign up, create your own learning circle. It will automatically appear on this web page, and you can send your own unique URL out to your patrons to get people to sign up. And so it's the website, and it's this facilitator handbook. Again, I think Jennifer just pasted a link, but this is free on our website. Everything we do is openly licensed, and this is about a 40 or 50-page handbook that walks through a timeline. It includes a course selection rubric, template emails and flyers for your promotion. It has all the recipe cards in it, and so it really sort of walks through from this call where you joined this webinar ostensibly because you're sort of interested in ways that you can support online learning in your library, and then as Michael says, Shazam, it takes you all the way down to getting learners in the door that first week. So that's the sort of the first thing you can do if this is interesting for you is just check out our website, download the materials, create a learning circle, and see what's out there. And as I said, I don't think I need to do anything more on this slide. I just explained this, but the sort of extent of what we did. This handbook didn't exist until we had gone through 2 rounds of learning circles with Chicago, and so really is informed by the librarians, by the patrons, and really trying to mirror and anticipate their needs as they were getting started with this program. So when you go into our website, you'll see our facilitator guide. That's the sort of step you take to create a learning circle. You just fill out a few fields, the course you want me to do, what library you're meeting at, the date, the time, and then your learning circle will show up on our website. You'll have a flyer that you can start publicizing with, and as I think a few people have asked in the chat, the handbook's sort of designed for this to be on sort of a 4-week out timeline, and so we think getting the word out about a month beforehand is pretty ideal. And then once you have that link, you can share it with your patrons, share it with community organizations, and you can track people signing up. We ask a few questions on the sign up, goals for taking the course, a few questions as to if you have a laptop or headphones and how comfortable you are with a few sort of basic digital literacy tasks. And this is just information for you that's sort of all aggregated and shared with you, so you just have a better idea of who's coming in into your learning circle. And then, just the sort of weekly tempo, just so you have a better idea of what our software does. When people sign up, they start getting messages 2 days before each learning circle, either through email or SMS, reminding them to show up. The group meets in person for 2 hours. This is, it's a bit too small to see, but that's sort of what each weekly recipe card looks like. And so it has, an introduction question, a group activity, a few prompts for you. After each learning circle, we ask that you take, 5 minutes to do a little reflection and share back on the sort of facilitator dashboard that you'll have, how the course went, and then, that message is automatically sent out to learners the next week, 2 days beforehand, as part of their reminder. And we found that this is just a great way to sort of not really bog learners down with information and make them sign up for all these new things, but just sort of nudge them along to get them to come back on a weekly basis. And when they're done, we spoke with patrons, and we thought that some sort of informal certificate was useful. So this is what we put together with Chicago Public Library. Obviously, if the online course includes its own sort of validation or certificate, that's something that we support as well. And that's sort of the program. And so I really encourage you to talk to patrons when they come in about online learning. At the very least, start thinking about MOOCs and online courses as just a new resource that a lot of people are looking to the library to provide. You could go ahead and explore some online courses that are out there. As I said, in our handbook, we have a sort of guide for finding the right online course. We have about 30 online courses listed on our website that we've sort of culled through with Chicago Public Library, but there are literally thousands out there. Not all of them are in English also. So if you have a Spanish-speaking community or any other community, I think you'll find once you start exploring this that there really are an extraordinary range of topics that are out there. So there is no obligation if you download the handbook, but I think it really can start giving you a clearer picture of what this could look like in your branch. And then, as I said at the beginning, we'll be at ALA. Kate and I will be speaking, I think, with representatives from a few other libraries. And I would, encourage you also to email me if you're looking for sort of a larger collaboration, like what we did with the Knight Foundation in Chicago, where we were there to sort of support courses, help select the courses, run facilitation workshops, develop new tools and new technologies. That's something that we have background in and expertise in, and learning circles are quickly becoming the core of peer-to-peer universities' work, because we, like Kate said, we see it as just a really incredible way of sharing, engaging online learning experiences with a group of learners that generally don't benefit from them. And we think libraries are really a great partner for that. And I'll just take, I see one question right now from Jenny about whether librarians facilitate the same courses. Absolutely not. I think the workshop that we developed is really to help librarians find a course that supports their needs and their interests. And if you check out learningcircles.p2pu.org, you can see across Chicago, like Kate said, librarians are facilitating a number of courses. And so I put together one more slide, just a sort of takeaway, one more annotation tool. And so if you want to go back and click on that square and get your mark ready, I would love just to know, after talking about this, we'll have about 10 minutes for questions now, but if you want to go ahead and just mark what you're planning on doing with this next. If you're going to do absolutely nothing, that's good feedback, so feel free to say that. I would encourage you to try to do a little bit more than that, and so you could tweet about it. You could share the archive of this webinar with your colleagues, download the handbook, see how that goes, jump into running a learning circle, and as I said, I am available if you're a library or if you work for a larger system, if you think they'd be interested in integrating learning circles into a component of your programming. We do consulting work around that. We're always eager to apply for grants to try starting this or get on existing projects. And we'll be doing some work with IMLS coming forward and really looking at U.S. public libraries as a key way of getting learning circles out there. So I think that's it from me. Jennifer, do you want to speak a little bit about some of the questions that you've been seeing?
Yes, thank you so much. It's so exciting to hear about this, and I know people are excited now. There were some really great questions. Just to clarify, Jenny's question was, does the same librarian facilitate that 6 to 8 week course?
Oh, I see. So on each week, is it the same librarian?
Correct.
Yes, generally that is the case. There have been a few instances where 2 librarians will sort of split the duty, and if that's the way that it works best with timing, that has worked in the past. We usually just recommend that both librarians or both facilitators be present during that first week if possible.
That's good, kind of a team teaching approach. Yep. Kate, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to say that there are ideal situations, and then there are how things work, I know, actually within our system, and probably I'm imagining within other library systems. And we have had a couple, of times that, like Griff said, 2 people would do it, or there have been times that someone had another staff member like assist them to run the learning circle. But most of the time it is, we do try really hard to stick to that one librarian facilitator model.
Excellent. I'm going to make sure we get this question out here. Somebody said they're meeting with the CEO of Coursera at an event tonight. What's the single best question a public librarian should ask him?
Well, Kate, as a public librarian, do you want to try to answer that first?
Oh, wow. I feel like I'm really in the hot seat. I feel like he's right here with me. I'm asking him. I think it would be great if you asked about online courses that were not quite at the college level. So I know at CPL, and just for our patrons and for our patron population, it would be so wonderful to kind of get, instead of the college level online open courses, I'd love it if it was like a sort of late high school, community college level, but for adults.
That's a great question. And someone suggests that perhaps asking about making the interface easier to use for people with a lot of computer experience. I think making sure they know about learning circles. That was the question that came to my mind earlier on is, have you heard back from any of the folks that are providing MOOC access or other online learning? Are they seeing the retention rates of learners as a result of learning circles?
Yeah, I'll just add to that, Michael, that the public speaking course that Kate has mentioned is one course that we've run now, I think, 6 times, and that is a Coursera course from the University of Washington. And so I think you could mention that we've been running, a few Coursera courses. The public speaking one in particular has been very successful. But what somebody came up from Khan Academy at a talk that I gave at South by Southwest this year and sort of asked the same question, what can we do to help you? And I said, designing courses to be run as in-person experiences, recognizing that, the best way for people to access Coursera is not necessarily sitting at home on their computer doing it one-on-one, but offering some tools or supporting a learning circle model, I think will allow Coursera to start reaching more and more of the learners that, their mission statement says that they want to reach.
Excellent. There was a question about how many, do you limit the number of people in a learning circle? Is there a number that's too many?
We tend to say 3 is a crowd, 4 is a learning circle. I think once you get to 4, we have, you sort of have enough people to sort of bounce ideas around. And so on the lower end, we had one learning circle that had one person who came for, I think, 16 weeks in a row because they just liked getting the text message reminder and they could get away from their kids to come to the library once a week. On the upper end, I probably think 12 or so. I'm curious what Kate thinks. But I think once you get more than a dozen people in the 3rd or 4th week, it could benefit to sort of break the group up if you sort of have some people that are doing lots of homework each week, other people who are taking a slower approach. I'd probably say about that dozen is that breaking point. What do you think, Kate?
Yeah, I think dozen is the breaking point. I mean, each circle is unique, so if there was something going on that these dozen people were all working at the same pace and we're all doing the exact same amount of work outside of the circle, maybe it could work with more than a dozen, but I don't think that more than a dozen would be ideal.
Excellent. And there was a question about do learners learn at their own pace, or are they sort of working at the same pace as everyone? And I would say that maybe being able to break out into those smaller kind of sub-learning circles could address the needs of different learning styles or paces.
Yeah, that's right. So each circle also kind of decides early on how they want to work together. So if everyone sits around and has the conversation of, oh, I don't expect to do any work outside of this 90 minutes that we're meeting here in the library, then they wouldn't do that. So that's kind of something that each circle could decide on and could go through.
Excellent. Griff, did you have something?
I think I agree with that. I think some of the courses, like the test prep, the web design, are really more designed as one-on-one experiences between the learner and the course platform, and I think those lend themselves to people taking their own paths. Others, like public speaking, is a very sort of social and personal, experience, and so with those, I think that's where you tend to get a group of people who are in it together. But like Kate said, I think we remain flexible, and those are exactly the sorts of questions that come up in the recipe cards in those early weeks is, how much work are we going to do outside of this learning circle? What if some people don't have computers? How do we sort of accommodate the needs of multiple people, who really are coming from different backgrounds into this shared space?
Excellent. And I see you went to this screen. I'm wondering if you're going to answer the question about, do library users get confused as to where the learning circle is located, and is there a way to filter by location?
Yep. So we have city-specific pages. That's a screenshot of just our home page that I wanted to show. But if you were to go to learningscircles.pwp.org/city/Chicago, that's where you would see the 15 learning circles that are happening right now in Chicago. You can see that there are learning circles also happening, I think from the screenshot, in Mexico City, in Paris, in Dubai. And so we sort of, the handbook, I think, helps articulate a sort of promotional plan for each library. Sometimes, you want people to sign up here, but, sometimes it's the flyers in the library branches that are the best way to get people in the door. So I think we try to make it pretty clear. I think if there's one confusion to clear up at the beginning, it's the sort of dynamic of what's the difference between a learning circle and the online course. And Jenny's question about what resources we've used is relevant here. We find courses with CPL from Khan Academy, edX, Coursera, FutureLearn, Sailor.org, Code Academy, MIT OpenCourseWare, Udacity, and NovoEd. And these are all free online course providers. So Lynda is one that we haven't used yet. UCF Learn Free is one that I've just been speaking with somebody about, and we're probably going to start using. I mean, learning circles can really be wrapped around any online resource, and I think the important thing up front is just explaining that the learning circle is really just a model to help people get through the online course, which comes from one of these, various providers.
Excellent. I think that's an excellent segue. I just want to remind folks that all of our WebJunction webinars are archived, and we know many library staff are learning together around our archives. We do often provide a learner guide for folks to learn together and encourage people to adapt those guides. And I would say, you know, this learning circle model certainly would be a great one to experiment learning internally with your staff as well. I think we are at the top of the hour, so we need to wrap up, but as Griff said, please don't hesitate to contact him with additional questions. And we will look forward to sharing an email with you when the archive is available. We also will send you to a short evaluation as you leave this session today. I know there was a question about how do you evaluate online learning, which is a huge question, but hopefully you can take a moment to provide feedback to our presenters and to us as we develop our ongoing programming. And thank you again to both Griff and Kate, as well as our captioner for today. Thank you all so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.